Look around you. Every road you travel, every bridge you cross, every hospital, every university, every business, every city. Almost everything that shapes modern life exists because people cooperate. Most of these people will never meet. A farmer grows food for strangers. An engineer designs a bridge they may never cross. A scientist develops medicines for patients they will never know. Every day, billions of people depend on one another. This extraordinary capacity for cooperation is one of humanity's defining achievements. But it raises a remarkable question. How did a species that once lived in small groups become capable of building civilizations? History is often remembered through wars, empires, and technological breakthroughs. Yet beneath those stories lies another, the story of expanding cooperation. Civilization is more than monuments or governments. It is humanity's greatest system for living, creating, and solving problems together. To understand civilizations, we must first understand how cooperation evolved. For most of human history, people lived in small communities. Life revolved around family. Trust was personal. Resources come from nearby. Knowledge passed directly from one generation to the next. These communities were resilient. They could survive, they could adapt, but they could grow only so far. Without cooperation, beyond familiar faces, large civilizations remained impossible. Civilization did not begin with a single invention. It emerged through many gradual advances that reinforced one another. Our growing cognitive abilities allowed us to imagine the future, solve problems, and share increasingly complex ideas. Language preserved knowledge beyond a single lifetime. Shared stories, shared customs, and shared beliefs strengthened trust. Trust made cooperation more reliable. Cooperation allowed knowledge to accumulate. Each generation inherited more than before. Together, these developments steadily expanded what humanity could achieve. Agriculture transformed more than food production. It encouraged permanent settlements. Settlements became communities. Communities encouraged specialization. People no longer needed to do everything themselves. Some farmed, others built, others traded. Specialization increased productivity. Trade connected distant communities. Interdependence grew. Across centuries, villages became towns, towns became cities, cities became civilizations. Not through one great breakthrough, but through countless generations learning to cooperate in new ways. As civilizations grew, so did the possibilities before them. More people meant more knowledge, more trade, more innovation. But growth also changed the nature of society. The number of relationships expanded, so did the number of disagreements. Questions that once concerned a single family now affected entire communities. Cooperation had made civilization possible. Now civilization had become more complex. Every growing civilization eventually encountered similar questions. Who owns the land? How should agreements be honored? Who resolves disputes? Who protects shared resources? Who decides which rules apply to everyone? These questions did not emerge because civilization was failing. They emerged because it was succeeding. The larger a society became, the more coordination it required. Across history, civilizations answered those questions in different ways. Some relied on tradition, others on religion, others on councils, kings, or assemblies. The institutions differed, the underlying pattern did not. Shared customs became formal rules. Rules evolved into institutions. Institutions enabled strangers to cooperate with confidence. Civilization no longer depended only on personal relationships. It increasingly depended on the systems people built together. Looking across history, a clear pattern begins to emerge. Cooperation made civilization possible. Growth created complexity. Complexity demanded new ways of making decisions together. Civilization has never been a finished achievement. It is an ongoing process of learning how to organize increasingly complex societies. Each generation inherits the work and adds to it. The first principle. The quality of a civilization is inseparable from the quality of its collective decisions. History often remembers what civilization built, their monuments, their discoveries, their achievements, but beneath every enduring civilization lies something less visible. The ability of millions of people to cooperate, despite different interests, different backgrounds, and different beliefs. As societies become more complex, that cooperation increasingly depended on how people made decisions together. Every institution we inherit, every opportunity we enjoy, every system we rely on exists because generations before us learned to cooperate and coordinate at an unprecedented scale. If cooperation made civilization possible, how did civilization preserve it as they continue to grow? That question shaped the next chapter of human history. Civilizations solved one problem. It made large scale cooperation possible. But success created another. The larger a society became, the harder it became to keep that cooperation stable. Families could rely on familiarity. Small communities could rely on reputation. Civilizations could rely on neither. Something more was needed. Imagine a society of millions, people with different beliefs, different ambitions, different priorities, most of them strangers, yet all depending on one another. How can a society like that remain stable? Across history, every enduring civilization has had to answer that question. People seek many things: freedom, security, opportunity, fairness, belonging. These aspirations often reinforce one another. Sometimes they compete. Living together has always required balancing individual interests with the needs of the wider community. That balance lies at the heart of every enduring civilization. As societies expanded, daily life became less personal. Trade connected strangers. Communities became more diverse. Resources became more valuable. Opportunities increased. So did the potential for disagreement. The challenge was no longer creating cooperation. It was preserving it among people who might never know one another. Growth brought familiar questions. Who owns property? How are agreements honored? Who resolves disputes? How are shared resources managed? Who decides which rules apply to everyone? These questions were not signs of failure. They reflected the growing complexity of civilization itself. As societies grew, they needed more than cooperation. They needed shared expectations. Different civilizations found different answers. Their cultures, traditions, or institutions differed. Yet many arrived at the same realization. A stable society depends on shared expectations. People accept certain responsibilities, respect certain limits, and in return gain greater stability, security, and trust. Political thinkers later described this broad idea as the social contract. Not a single document, nor a single theory, but an evolving understanding that living together requires both rights and responsibilities. These shared expectations did not appear overnight. They evolved gradually. Values shaped behavior. Repeated behavior became customs. Custom became formal rules. Rules gave rise to institutions. Those institutions made cooperation more predictable, not by eliminating disagreement, but by giving societies reliable ways to manage it. Most of us rarely notice these institutions. We trust contracts, use money, attend schools, travel on public roads, receive healthcare, resolve disputes through established processes. These actions feel ordinary because stable cooperation has become ordinary. The strongest institutions often become almost invisible. We notice them most when they stop working. Rules alone cannot sustain a society. People must believe those rules are broadly legitimate. Trust reduces uncertainty, encourages cooperation, supports investment, strengthens communities. When trust weakens, cooperation becomes more fragile. Not because people stop depending on one another, but because confidence in the system begins to erode. Across civilizations, a consistent pattern emerges. Growing societies developed shared expectations. Shared expectations evolved into rules. Rules evolved into institutions, and institutions helped preserve cooperation across generations. Their purpose was never to eliminate disagreement. It was to ensure that disagreement did not overwhelm the society itself. The second principle. Enduring civilizations are defined not by the absence of conflict, but by their ability to manage it through trusted institutions. Disagreement is a permanent feature of human society. People will always hold different interests, different priorities, different perspectives. What distinguishes enduring civilization is not perfect agreement. It is their ability to resolve disagreement peacefully, adapt to change, and preserve cooperation over time. Rules did not restrict civilization, they make civilization possible. Rules can guide society, institutions can preserve cooperation, but neither can act on their own. Someone must interpret the rules, resolve disputes, coordinate society, and exercise authority on behalf of the wider community. That leads to another question. Who should have the legitimate authority to decide? Rules help societies cooperate. Institutions help preserve that cooperation. But neither can act on their own. Someone must interpret the rules, resolve disputes, coordinate collective action, and make decisions on behalf of society. Every civilization has therefore faced the same question: who should have the legitimate authority to decide? Across history, society have answered that question in different ways. Some looked to elders, others to chiefs, kings, religious leaders, councils, parliaments, constitutions, or elected governments. The institutions changed, the question did not. How should a society organize legitimate authority? Authority did not appear all at once. It evolved as societies become larger and more complex. Families relied on experience. Communities looked to respected elders. Settlements required administrators. Kingdoms developed centralized leadership. Modern states built increasingly specialized institutions. Different civilizations followed different paths. Yet, each was responding to the same challenge: how can millions of people coordinate life together? As societies expanded, their responsibilities expanded with them. Disputes required impartial resolution. Shared resources required management. Infrastructure required planning. Emergencies demanded coordinated action. Personal relationships alone could no longer organize society. Authority emerged as a practical response to an increasingly complex world. Across civilizations, organized societies gradually assumed remarkably similar responsibilities: protecting security, administering justice, managing shared resources, building public infrastructure, responding to crisis, coordinating services that individuals could not provide alone. How these responsibilities are carried out differs widely. That they exist is nearly universal. Authority alone cannot sustain a society. It must become organized. Responsibilities become institutions. Institutions develop procedures. Procedures become systems of governance. Governance is more than the exercise of power. It is the organized exercise of legitimate authority through stable institutions. That continuity allows societies to coordinate decisions, adapt to change, and function across generations. Today, most of humanity lives within sovereign states. Their histories differ, their political systems differ, their institutions differ. Yet most perform similar fundamental functions. They uphold the law, provide public services, protect security, maintain infrastructure, collect revenue, and coordinate collective action. One influential idea in political science associated with sociologist Max Weber describes the modern state as the institution that claims the legitimate use of physical force within its territory under the rule of law. The emphasis is not on force itself, it is on legitimacy. Public institutions replace private force as the accepted means of maintaining order. Power alone rarely creates durable societies. Enduring authority depends on something deeper: legitimacy, public trust, predictable institutions, accountability, and the capacity to adapt. Power may secure obedience, legitimacy encourages cooperation. History suggests that civilizations endure not simply because authority exists, but because people broadly recognize its right to govern. Today's challenges extend far beyond local communities. Artificial intelligence, climate change, cybersecurity, global finance, migration, energy, pandemics, supply chains, these challenges connect governments, businesses, researchers, and citizens across the world. Authority remains essential, but governing an interconnected world has become more demanding than ever before. Authority did not evolve simply to exercise power. It evolved to organize society, coordinate cooperation, resolve disputes, protect shared interests, and provide continuity across generations. As civilizations became more complex, authority became more organized, and governance became one of humanity's most important institutional achievements. The third principle: the strength of authority lies not in the power it holds, but in the legitimacy with which it is exercised. History has produced many forms of government, yet one lesson appears again and again. Stable societies depend on institutions that people broadly recognize as legitimate. Institutions capable of making decisions, resolving conflict, adapting to change, and maintaining public trust. Authority is not an end in itself. Its purpose is to help society function. Authority shapes the decisions that organize society, But what do those decisions actually influence? The answer is closer than most of us realize. Long before we notice them, they have already shaped the world we experience every day. Every society makes collective decisions, but what do those decisions actually shape? The answer is simple: far more than we actually notice. Long before we begin our day, countless decisions have already shaped it. Imagine an ordinary morning. You wake up, the light works, clean water reaches your home, your phone connects to the world, roads carry millions of people, businesses open, schools begin, hospitals receive patients. Most of this feels completely ordinary, which is precisely the point. The system we depend on every day are often the ones we notice the least. None of these systems appeared by accident. They are the result of decisions made over many years. Where roads would be built, how schools will be funded, which standards would be adopted, how resources would be allocated. No single decision created modern society. It emerged through millions of decisions accumulated across generations. Modern life is shaped by many interacting systems. Governments establish laws. Businesses create goods and services. Markets coordinate exchange. Universities generate knowledge. Communities build trust. Families shape values. Technology connects them all. No single institution explains society. It is their interaction that creates the world we experience. Every important decision creates consequences beyond its original purpose. A new railway improves mobility, but it can also influence housing, employment, investment, regional development. Expanding healthcare improves public health. It also affects education, productivity, and public finance. In complex societies, one decision often reshapes many others. The more connected society becomes, the more connected its decisions become. Energy influences industry. Industry influences employment. Employment influences families. Families influence education. Education shapes future innovation. Each decision becomes part of a much larger system. Understanding society means understanding those connections. Most people will never write laws, lead governments, or manage public institutions. Yet everyone lives with the consequences of those decisions. Whether we are citizens, workers, students, entrepreneurs, or consumers, our opportunities are shaped not only by our own choices, but also by the system around us. Individual events rarely tell the whole story. Looking at society as a system reveals something deeper. Short-term actions create long-term consequences. Decisions in one area influence outcomes in another. Patterns emerge that are difficult to see in isolation. Understanding those relationships help explain not only what happens, but why. Every day, we move through systems built by people we will never meet. We depend on institutions we rarely notice, and we experience the consequences of those decisions we've never witnessed. Collective decision making is not something distant. It quietly shapes the society of everyday life, whether we recognize it or not. The fourth principle. The systems that shape everyday life are, in large part, the result of collective decisions accumulated over time. Our lives are shaped by many forces: family, culture, technology, markets, geography, personal choices, chance, and the institutions created through collective decisions. None explain society on its own. Together they shape the environment in which we live. Understanding those systems helps us better understand the world and our place within it. These systems have transformed human life, but the world they serve is changing faster than ever before. New technologies, global networks, shared risks, interconnected challenges. Can the decision systems that shape the past keep pace with the complexity of the future? Human civilization has never been more capable. We live longer, know more, communicate faster, build at greater scale. Yet many of our most important challenges remain difficult to solve. Why? The world has changed. Information moves instantly. Goods cross continents. Supply chain spans dozens of countries. Financial markets operate continuously. Artificial intelligence is reshaping entire industries. Events in one region can influence lives around the world. Human society has become deeply interconnected. Interconnection creates opportunity. It also creates complexity. Energy influences industry. Industry influences emissions. Climate influences agriculture. Agriculture shapes food security. Food security influences migration. Migration affects politics. Each system influences one another. Understanding any one challenge increasingly requires understanding many others. The modern world reflects extraordinary human progress. Scientific discovery, technological innovation, economic development, global cooperation, these achievements have transformed billions of lives. But greater capability also creates greater responsibility. As civilization advances, its decisions become more interconnected. Their consequences become more far reaching. Many of our institutions evolved in a different era, a world where problems were often more local, more predictable, less interconnected. Today's challenges are different. They cross borders, cross sectors, cross generations, and often evolve faster than the systems created to manage them. That is the complexity gap, not a failure of institutions, but a widening gap between the complexity of today's challenges and the context in which many institutions first evolved. Complex problems rarely fit within a single discipline. Climate is not only an environmental issue, it is also economic, technological, geopolitical, and social. Artificial intelligence is not only a technological issue, it also raises questions about employment, education, law, security, and ethics. The real world does not organize itself into separate fields, yet expertise often must. The challenge is learning how to connect that knowledge. Imagine a proposal to build a new industrial corridor. It may create jobs, strengthen manufacturing, improve transport, and attract investment. At the same time, it may affect housing, water demand, local ecosystems, public finances, urban development. One decision, many consequences, across many interconnected systems. Throughout history, societies have responded to growing complexity in different ways. Through public debate, scientific discovery, institutional reform, elections, judicial review, and civic participation. History also shows that periods of political upheaval, including revolutions and coups, often created new uncertainties and challenges, even when they sought to address existing problems. Lasting progress has more often depended on something deeper: the ability to learn, adapt, strengthen institutions, improve coordination, and improve the quality of collective decision making. Resilient societies are not those that resist change, they are those that continually improve how they respond to it. As the world becomes more interconnected, effective decision making requires new capabilities, better evidence, broader perspectives, long term thinking, system thinkings, a clearer understanding of trade offs, and the willingness to adapt as new information emerges. These are no longer optional, they are becoming essential. The defining challenge of our time is not simply technological or economic or political. It is that our decisions increasingly influence many interconnected systems at once. The better we understand those connections, the better prepared we are to navigate them. The fifth principle: as civilization becomes more interconnected, understanding complexity becomes increasingly essential to making sound collective decisions. Every generation inherits institutions built by those before it. Those institutions have enabled remarkable human progress. The challenge is not to replace them, it is to help them evolve alongside the world they now serve. Because civilization continues to change, and our understanding must evolve with it. If today's decisions influence many interconnected systems, they also influence many different people. Some benefit, some bear the costs. Most experience a mixture of both. Before asking what the best decision is, we should first ask a more fundamental question: who is affected? The decisions that shape modern society rarely affect just one issue. They ripple across many systems and many lives. That raises a practical question. Before making an important decision, how do we understand everyone it may affect? Imagine a city plans to build a new highway. For some, it means shorter journeys, new jobs, greater investment. For others, it may mean relocation, noise, environmental change, or the loss of familiar places. The same decision creates different realities for different people. Understanding those differences is essential to understanding the decision itself. We often ask, what should we do? But complex decisions require another question: who will this affect? Every significant decision extends beyond its original purpose. Its consequences spread across communities, organizations, markets, and future generations. Understanding those consequences begins by understanding those affected. A stakeholder is anyone meaningfully affected by a decision or able to influence its outcome. That may include citizens, workers, businesses, communities, governments, investors, researchers, and in many discussions, future generations and the natural environment. The stakeholders change from one decision to another. The principle does not. Every important decision has stakeholders. Stakeholders thinking is not about choosing sides. It begins by understanding perspectives. What does each group value? What concerns them? What opportunities do they see? What risks do they face? People can look at the same decision and reach very different conclusions. Understanding why is often the first step toward understanding the problem itself. Complex decisions rarely produce perfect outcomes. Expanding industry may create jobs while increasing environmental pressure. Greater security may reduce privacy. Lower taxes may encourage investment while reducing public revenue. Progress often requires balancing competing priorities. Stakeholder thinking does not remove those trade-offs. It helps make them visible. Stakeholders do not exist in isolation. They are connected through larger systems. Businesses depend on workers. Workers depend on education. Education depends on public investment. Public investment depends on economic activity. A change in one part of the system often influences many others. Understanding stakeholders therefore means understanding relationships, not simply identifying affected groups. Stakeholder thinking begins with better questions. Who benefits? Who bears the cost? Which impacts are immediate? Which emerge over time? What evidence supports our assumptions? Which trade-offs are unavoidable? Better questions cannot guarantee better decisions, but they make better decisions more likely. Stakeholder thinking is not an ideology. It does not promise universal agreement, nor does it assume every interest can be fully satisfied. It is a practical way of understanding complexity. The broader our understanding, the better prepared we are to evaluate difficult choices. Every important decision changes someone's reality. Understanding that reality does not tell us what to decide, but it reveals what is at stake. And better understanding is often the foundation of better judgment. The sixth principle. Better collective decisions begin with a better understanding of the people and the systems they affect. Throughout history, humanity has continually developed better ways to organize life together. Stakeholder thinking is another step in that journey. It does not replace governments, markets, courts, or democratic institutions. It complements them by helping decision makers better understand the complexity they seek to manage. Understanding is where better decisions begin, but understanding alone is not enough. Ideas matter only when they are put into practice. So one final question remains. What would a platform dedicated to that mission look like? The Stakeholders Bridge. Every generation inherits a civilization it did not build. Its institutions, its knowledge, its opportunities, its challenges. Each generation must decide what to preserve, what to improve, and what to leave behind. That is where the Stakeholders Bridge begins. Today's challenges rarely belong to a single discipline. Public policy influences economics. Economics shapes business. Business drives technology. Technology transforms society. Society influences governance. Each is connected to the others. Yet knowledge is often organized into separate fields. Bridging those perspectives has become one of the defining challenges of our time. The Stakeholders Bridge is a platform dedicated to understanding complex public decisions. Its purpose is straightforward: to bring together evidence, systems thinking, and diverse perspectives, so that important issues can be understood more completely before they are judged. Not because complexity can be eliminated, but because it can be understood more clearly. Every important issue begins with the same question. What is the decision? Who are the stakeholders? What evidence is available? How do the systems interact? What trade-offs exist? What consequences may follow? Only then do we begin exploring possible solutions, because better answers usually begin with better questions. We believe evidence, thoughtful disagreement, institutions, innovations, markets, communities, democratic participation, everything matters. No single discipline, institution, or ideology can fully explain a complex society. Understanding grows by connecting knowledge, not by reducing it to a single perspective. The Stakeholders Bridge is not a political party. It is not a government. It is not a replacement for democratic institutions. And it does not claim to possess every answer. Its role is different: to encourage careful analysis, constructive dialogue, intellectual humility, and a deeper understanding of the systems that shape our shared future. In the chapters ahead, we will explore the forces shaping the modern world, from public policy, economics, business, technology, science, governance, security, the environment, global affairs, not as isolated subjects, but as interconnected systems that constantly influence one another. This series is not about telling you what to think, it is about encouraging a different way of thinking, to ask better questions, examine evidence carefully, recognize complexity, understand trade offs, and appreciate the perspectives of those affected by important decisions. These habits matter wherever people make decisions together. Our mission is simple: to improve understanding before conclusions, dialogue before polarization, analysis before assumption, and thoughtful judgment before decisive action. Because stronger societies begin with a deeper understanding of the choices they face. The world will continue to change. Artificial intelligence, climate, economic transformation, energy, health, security, and challenges we cannot yet imagine. No institution, no discipline, and no individual will have every answer. The future will belong to societies that remain curious, adaptable, collaborative, and willing to keep learning. The final principle: better understanding leads to better questions. Better questions lead to better decisions. Better decisions help build a better future. Civilization has never stood still. Each generation inherits the knowledge, institutions, and opportunities created by those before it. Its responsibility is not only to preserve that inheritance, but to understand it, strengthen it, and prepare it for those who come next. That is how civilizations move forward. Civilization is humanity's greatest collaborative project. Every generation inherits it. Every generation reshapes it. The future will be shaped by the decisions we make and by the understanding that guides them. Welcome to the Stakeholders Bridge. The conversation begins here.